This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marc Godin. I work with PTAC, Petroleum Technology Alliance Canada, and I'm pleased and excited for this morning's event, Focus Conversations for Digital Technologies, and we will cover artificial intelligence, machine learning, and productivity software for field operations. But before we get into the meat of things, I have a few comments on logistics. So first of all, this event is meant to be focused conversation, so we are not following the traditional webinar PowerPoint format. You will hear and see conversations between subject matter experts who will provide an overview of challenges and opportunities, and then solution providers who have solutions to meet these challenges and opportunities. The event itself will be about an hour, and afterwards we'll have a networking session where you in the audience and others, again the panelists as well and the facilitators, will be able to ask questions and interact more with each other. So that will take place around 11 o'clock. PTAC is an industry association with 24 years of existence, and that's part of our mandate, is to facilitate the introduction of new technologies in the Canadian hydrocarbon energy ecosystem. A brief safety moment before we launch. Typically want to mention the COVID pandemic and encourage everyone to follow the public health advisories so that we can recover from this situation as quickly as possible. And finally, one more mention on logistics is questions. You can also use a chat function in the GoToWebinar platform to type in your question if you prefer to do it that way, and the PTAC facilitators will read it out during the networking part of the event. So it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Liang, who is a member of CRIN, the Clean Resource Innovation Network, but also a professor at the University of Calgary and the founder of SensorUp, a very exciting new technology company in the space of digital innovation. So Steve, I'll turn it over to you to introduce your colleagues and set the stage for the discussion on artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Thank you, Marc. So welcome everybody. So I'm the moderator for the first session. We are going to talk about AI, and then hot topic and a lot of buzz, but hopefully you can get some insights about AI and how to apply and how they are applied today to solve some of the, to disrupt our industry, right? To have some huge benefits, right? Today we're very excited to have three panelists. We have Warren from Spartan, and with Peter from Whitewell, and Amardeep from Drishya AI. And then they are going to present their own experiences, and we're going to have some discussions. And then at the end, we are going to have a group discussion. I mean, after two panels and more discussions, open the floor for you to ask questions. So before we start the questions, we would go to the panelists, and I'm going to set up the stage. So a lot of people are asking, what does it mean by AI? I think the panelists were going to give you an idea about what's their flavor about what does it mean by AI. And I strongly suggest I recommend you to read the book, right? I'm a professor, read the book, right? It's called Prediction Machines. So it's not a textbook about data mining or AI or machine learning. It's about how to apply AI to change the way you do business. So it's written by Professor Ajay, he's an economist. So Prediction Machine. So from that book, it said AI means predictions, okay? And then by definition, predictions means taking what you have and to generate something you don't have. For example, you have a picture, and then the picture has cats and dogs, and then it's a picture, just pixels. You only have the RGB value of the pixels. But when you apply deep learning AI, right, darknet, YOLO, and you can say, oh, this box is a cat inside, right? So that's AI. From what you have, just pixels, into what you don't have, which is what's inside, right? Apply to oil and gas, for example. There is a company in town, right? So we get a video and you can see, okay, so do you have any cars visit your site, right? So can reduce your unnecessary visit, right? Because you instead of you hire a person to watch and monitor your site, you can use AI to tell you what's activity at your well pads or the sites, right? So this is predictions. And the good thing about today, but these predictions are not new, right? I took AI course 20 years ago when I was doing my PhD. And then, 12 years ago, not 20. And then I'm not that old. And then, however, what's different is really it becomes cheap, affordable. So right now it's all the buzz, right? So that's what's really different today is it become very affordable. So you have image recognition, you have time series analysis, graph-based AI, and it's really, really become cheap. So you can start to apply in a lot of your operations. So the other thing talk about in the book is how you apply AI to disrupt your business, right? So I encourage you to look at something called AI Canvas. So it's about to break down, for example, you have workflows for you to operate your business or value chain. You break down into, you know your workflows, and you break down these workflows into tasks. And then you see which task can be replaced by AI. So some tasks are performed by humans. Some tasks today can be replaced by AI, for example. Let me give you an oil and gas example. Yeah, we have a customer, and then they have SCADA system, and they have wastewater tanks, single battery sites, right? Wastewater tanks and oil tanks. And they have a task for a human is to every day or every how many days go over all these different batteries and try to predict which battery or which tank will be full. It's a very simple task. Yeah. However, right now today they are use human to do it by using AI, very simple AI, right? And from the inputs from your SCADA and then from historical data, you can predict which tank will be full. And then you can automatically schedule liquid hauling, for example. So this replace a task performed by human today, use AI to make predictions, which is going to be full, what's the best truck to haul it, and then the human can make a judgment. So yes, I like this prediction. I like that prediction, and go, 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 right? So this is just one example. And then what do we mean by AI and how to apply AI in a framework? So hopefully that's set up stage, yeah? Okay, so we have three exciting presentations. So the first one is Warren. Warren's from Spartan, and Spartan has a artificial intelligence center of artificial intelligence, right? So I'm very excited to learn more about it. So Warren, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, Warren Mitchell with Spartan Controls. Been with Spartan for the last 6 years. I'm the director of digital industry solutions. Been working with large industrial data sets. So we work mostly with process industry customers. Stephen, I like the definition. Building predictions for things like quality parameters in refineries. So things that we can't easily measure. You can often use the correlated process information to predict things that you can't otherwise measure. So we use AI to build those types of predictive models. Just as an example, we'll get more into that in my presentation. Yeah, Steve, we just recently announced we're co-funding Altec's Center for AI, or Center for excellence in artificial intelligence in Calgary. So this is a project that's partially funded by the city, yeah, we're looking to help build capacity in the city and in the province around skill sets in the AI and specifically machine learning space. So excited to be part of that, and we've got a number of people that will be participating in their Center of Excellence there, and building their skills in that space. So yeah, so that's my background.
Super exciting. Actually, I read the news, right? I was like, yes, it addressed the capacity, right? So who can do that, and the training, and also help the companies to do that, right? Very exciting. I'm very happy to see that in Alberta. A question, big question. So a lot of organizations are doing digital transformation, right? What does that mean, digital transformation, right? But it's very so number one, what does it mean? And then, but I think a very important question is what do you see as the largest challenge the customers are having in their AI and digital transformation program?
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, it's lots of it, industry, 4.0 and digital transformation initiatives going on, certainly in the process industry. So lots going on in Calgary, lots going on in pulp and paper and mining, for certain. So in pipelines, so right across the whole process industries. And it's pretty exciting, to see people starting to want to utilize this data in their business transformation. That would be kind of my definition of digital transformation. How do they take industrial data sets, from their operations and use them to their advantage in some way in their business transition? But I guess one, with all that being said, people are really excited about the AI space. They they want to kick off an analytics project or a program. And honestly, for those of us that have been around in the data space for a number of years, one of the biggest challenges we're finding customers are having are, do they really have the data, what we call the data foundation, place to scale, the program that they want. So just take an example, we do a lot of rotating machinery monitoring, or we monitor, upstream assets, wells, SAGD wells, these types of things. First of all, do you have all of the data? Do the sensors exist to predict the anomaly that you're looking to detect, or the failure that you're trying to detect? Fault detection is another big use case, Steve, for AI in the process industries, people wanting to make their assets more reliable, whether it's rotating machines or, as I said, upstream assets, et cetera. So we often build AI models to, predict anomalies on these things. But if you don't have all of the data, you don't have all of the right data, the data is not prepared properly, those are challenges. Then the other thing is, we often get into starting to deal with some very large data sets. So can you transport, if you have the data, can you transport those data sets across your networks, and get them into, often we're dealing in cloud computing platforms now. So we want to take advantage of, massively parallel, processing, in these cloud platforms. And we want to take advantage of, AI and machine learning platforms in them. So, can you get the data, the size of the data that you want across the networks? And, we had one customer trying to move, 10 years worth of data, 1 million tags, 1 second data. These are some pretty good sized data sets across their networks. And of course, if that's not done thoughtfully, you break those data systems, those operational data systems, or you break the networks that you're talking to. And of course, that upsets the people in the plants and the people in the operations. So we need to be cognizant of that. So I'd say, none of that's glamorous, but it's still a challenge for a lot of the people that are wanting to get into the AI and the machine learning space. So that's really something to think about. Do you have the data foundation in place to guarantee the success of your
Steve, 30 seconds before the next panel. Sorry, Warren.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No worries. So yeah, I'll leave that point there then, Steve.
Yeah, but it's a great point. Actually, it's really get your foundation good, right? So ready. And also, I heard the other term is maybe echo what you said, is find where you are the spot you are data rich but information poor, right?
Yes.
And that's where you focus on. And yeah, great. And then I just give you 10 seconds to answer the next question. So where do you see some application the organization apply AI?
Great. So we touched on them, briefly in the preamble there. A few big areas: reliability, certainly. So asset reliability. So fault detection and diagnostic types of applications. So we're doing stuff on large pieces of rotating machinery. So companies setting up centers to monitor thousands of rotating machines across their entire organization, and they're wanting to use AI in the cloud, to scale these programs out. So that's one. Another is we talked about predicting quality parameters. So in oil sands, looking at various quality parameters of their bitumen throughout their process, and being able to predict those qualities at different stages so that they can manage their chemical consumption better. Whether it's diluent or emulsifiers, demulsifiers. These kinds of things. So those are a couple really good areas. The other one is optimization, solving optimization problems. Looking at a fleet of compressors, which one should be running, which one should not be running, based on market prices, based on constraints in your field and your process and your equipment. So those are three good areas, Steve.
Thank you, Warren. Okay, I'll go. We might have time to go back to you later. Okay, so next panelist is Amardeep and from Drishya AI. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning. It's my pleasure to be on the panel. I am actually broadcasting live from Bangalore, where I'm kind of stuck with this, this global situation with COVID. But that kind of brings me to my company, which spans Calgary and India, or the engineering-driven ecosystem of Calgary with the fast, frugal innovation system of Bangalore. And I find that very fascinating, how you bring value of two very different ways of thinking and how you bring them together to an industry or a domain like energy. And we are, of course, working. We are a young company, but moving fast. And as of now, our focus essentially is some of the oil sand operators and some of the EPCs or engineering companies. Right. So those are the two main kind of areas that we are working with on.
I know you have a lot of experiences in AI, right? So actually follow up on the Warren's data comment and the AI. What is AI, right? So how do you describe AI and how to think about data in terms of AI?
Sure, thank you. So I kind of think AI, the definition is AI helps you or learns context. So it kind of moves. So when you were talking about, is this a cat or a dog? So AI moves from there to what's in the picture. Can you describe that? Okay. Or I would say, that's where AI is now moving, and I put those two contextual things into buckets. Either think like a human, so like the conversational AI that's there with Siri or Alexa, or think beyond a human, where you are beyond, where we are talking about massive variances or massive, in a sensor-rich world, where, like what Warren was saying, you have per second data, but you have those many tags. Now, it is beyond the human capability to figure out all the correlations and the variances and the covariances and other things. That's where AI is actually able to determine the states or the transitory states, okay, and then provide those contexts. All right. So I think of AI from that context point of view. And when you think from a context in an operational scenario, then the data that you used to have earlier, the transactional data in tables, is just one of the realms. Okay, you are now talking about data that lives in documents, data that lives in images, data that lives in sound. Okay, and the ability for you to kind of essentially merge all of these data sets into a single viewpoint. Okay, and then so an example I'll give is, and we run into this problem in what Warren was talking about, data readiness. Okay, you have to essentially color your time domain or time series data. Okay, what happened? That what happened will live not on your sensor data or on the SCADA data. It'll live in your journal data. It will live in Excel spreadsheets. It'll live in so many other areas. And that's where techniques like NLP come into play. All right. So how do you then generate an event out of NLP, bring that into the same time domain to be able to color your data stream? Okay. And then, so that is one of the things where we are innovating on. How do you actually do that?
Data, back to data again, right? So garbage in, garbage out, how to put them together, right? Yeah. Okay.
So but the thing is, sorry, one of the things that where the traditional methods change is where you have now like the reinforcement learning techniques, which are kind of situational. You let the algos play against themselves and they've kind of figure out and learn the scenarios. So that's where some of the other innovations that are occurring, where even if you throw all that massively sparse matrix, the variance will still pop out, and you are able to figure out the cadence of information or cadence of the plant, right? And that kind of becomes a signal for you to then do the next thing. So that would be my view.
So my next question about you is about your product. Actually, I think I saw you at the CDL a year ago, actually. So tell me about what's Drishya. Maybe I was wrong, but anyway, I saw you somewhere. What's Drishya? Yeah. What's your product? And then what's your business model? Basically, how do we pay for Drishya? And what do you do in this SAC-D space?
So again, thank you. So one of the things that we are again innovating on is on the SaaS business model. Okay, how do we move? So I firmly believe that as we are dealing with the commodity markets, this situation with the commodity markets, the capex-based way of dealing with things, there is an opportunity to actually change that. So we are heavily innovating on SaaS business models that enable the leverage the cloud. Okay, certainly some of the examples that Warren talked about, how do you move data, right? So we have had to deal with that. We kind of shovel the data across lots of times in sneaker net. Okay, but then there are the SaaS models that we've built in, which are able to, and which we are continuing to build, which basically are using AI techniques like
hi Steve, hi Amardeep. 30 seconds. Sorry.
Right. So we are using those techniques to actually quickly pull out the insights. So instead of having an analyst look at that, now you have AI run on top of your data, like whatever the analyst's output would have been is now the thing that AI is now providing. Okay, that enables you to now scale things very fast. Another example of that is where we are actually pulling in engineering drawings, deploying computer vision, NLP, the entire thing to actually build out the structure of the plant, right? A digital twin or a digital twin light. So you are able to build that context again and then build the higher order problems on top of it. So that kind of thing is again highly amenable to a SaaS business model. So,
Great. Yeah, thank you, Amardeep. And then for the audience, if you're interested in know more about Drishya, you know who to talk to. So let's go to the next panelist, Peter. Hey, Peter. Yeah, we had some beer chat a year ago, maybe. Yeah, so why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
For sure. My name is Peter. I'm the head of algorithms here at Whitewell. So I consider Whitewell one of the earlier companies to apply AI and ML in Calgary. We've been doing that for different industries. And being based in Calgary means we have a play in energy. And we've been always pretty good at building algorithms and solving problems. But in the last 3 years, we've been quietly building this platform, AI analytics, that we call DeepSea, that allows us to scale some of these applications, algorithms, with a very small team very quickly. So our goal in 2021 is to actually open up this platform so that the corporate users could also get a sense of this enjoyable data science experience that we've been providing for everybody.
Oh, wow, I like it. Enjoyable data science experience. It sounds
it has to be. I think, with that much data and
right?
coding, has to be fun.
Great. So Pierre, Bird told me, or you have a press release, actually, you did some work with Husky in SACD, yeah? So congrats, but what lesson you learned from this journey and what value you create?
Yeah, for sure. So Husky has been a really good partner to work with in the energy space in the last 2.5 years. And I think being in my 20s, I have a different sense of time and risk profile. Maybe it's even somewhat foolish to think what we were going to do was possible. But I think one of the things I learned is it takes a lot of guts and innovative spirit for something to try applications in AI. And I don't think every company has the appetite. Warren talked about the data readiness. I think there's something else that's part of it. It's the cultural piece. And I think there are tons of great ideas when it comes to AI, and execution is where it really counts. So in SACD, there has been tons of projects involving various solutions, and they have really well capitalized everything, big teams, smart people, tons of data, working with reputable companies. So for a company like Husky to take a chance on white whale, we're looking beyond those things, right? So there's something more. I think it speaks volume to our shared principles and mutual admiration for each other. And I think at the end of the day, that's what made the project pretty successful.
Actually, it's a great point. Actually, it's about it's two-way street, right? You can have a hammer, like AI is a hammer, but the other side, the adapter need to be ready, right? So do you think what's the top 1 or 2 things any business, for example, like Husky, they need to understand to have this kind of successful industrialization of AI in the energy sector?
Yeah, I think, I think the top thing is your engineers have to be your #1 chief expert and not the external consultants. You have to trust your engineers more than anybody from the outside. So because I think at the end of the day, they're the end users, they're the ones who's going to be really critical about how the AI works, where it doesn't work, what are some of the nuances, the intricacies, the constraints. I think I'm not going to get into the technical aspect, but just from the pure application implementation side of things, they have to be critical part of that development. And they're also the ones giving your blood, sweat, and tears, right? So defend them and defend them with everything you got. I think one of the things that makes it really easy to work with Husky was they have that belief in their team. And it's not just about listen to your engineers or listen to the data. It's listen to the engineers and data. So white whale operates in the same kind of fundamental principles, which makes the working relationship really easy to keep and improve. So the other thing I think Husky did really well was they didn't just open up their data lake and say, hey, here, have a look, right? Tell us what you learned, tell us what you can find. I actually think this is a wrong approach to data science. Instead, they were really focused, right? They came to us and said, hey, here are a few challenges. We think we have the data. It might not be perfect, but can you help us? Can you take a look, right? And that's where I think having their expertise in the process really helped us focus our efforts. So in the end, Husky was innovative, not because all of a sudden they started to, I don't know, they transformed themselves as software developers. They don't just show up to work one day in t-shirts and start doing stand-ups and stuff. Instead, they were focusing on things that they know best, which is the protocols, the process, the know-how, the in-house expertise, being critical about their day-to-day business, and that really helped us. So that focus really allowed us to have the speed in the implementations.
Actually, maybe just a coincidence or not a coincidence, right? We also SensorUp also work with Husky, and we have similar experience. Actually, they are quite progressive and then focused. I really like that, right? It has a vision, so it's really a delight to work with them. So my final question: so what would you say the most complicated part to implement day-to-day AI? What's complicated?
Yeah, I think this is something that all the panelists would relate. I think it has to be the deployment and industrialization process. In our time, we've seen a lot of prototypes. We've built a lot of prototypes ourselves, but in order to scale it to deliver value, especially in today's environment, when you have companies are cutting their capex, and for something to scale, it really has to deliver that value. And to scale it, I think it's pretty difficult to understand just the complexity behind the scenes. So, Warren kind of talked about it. Billions of data points running 24/7, dozens, maybe hundreds of users, near real-time feedback, enterprise-grade security, fully enabled audit trails. These are some of the just part of the system. So I think to get this done, you need a very dedicated team. And this is something that, you can probably get away with hiring contractors to get it built, but I don't think it's the right problem for the contractors. And for that, I think having the right partner and dedicated company to do so is really important. We think that
30 seconds, Steve and Peter. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and the other thing may be just the difference between data scientists and software developers. Both of them can code, but they think differently. They can be more different in practice, right? And typically business can you code? Well, that's what I need. But in reality, I don't think that could be further from the truth.
Yeah, actually, I have similar observations. Exactly, right? So you have data scientists, you need somebody to operationalize or industrialize your AI, right? Okay, so I think it's up for our panel, and then I'll give the time back to Mark.
Thank you very much, Steve and Armadeep, Warren, and Peter. Awesome job. Very good in-depth conversation about AI and machine learning. I'm so pleased to now introduce Mark Scantlebury. Mark and I have crossed paths for the last 15 years, maybe. Mark leads Extreme Telematics and also the oil field IoT Consortium, and he's also a founding member of the Alberta IoT Consortium. So Mark, welcome. Also appreciate your contribution to the CRIN Digital Theme Group, and I'll turn it over to you to introduce your colleagues.
All right, thanks, Mark. If the rest of my panel, maybe just turn on your video, Brandon and Doug. Amit, you're already on there. And I'll introduce you guys in a minute. But first of all, just a little bit about my background. I've spent, well, Mark kind of alluded to my age and how long I've been in the industry. But my broader experience goes back about 20 years in application software, embedded software, devices, primarily in the oil field. And so, this has included controls, sensing, movement of data from the field, centralized data storage, analytics, visualization. And so we see that all of these things are coming together now. And even the last topic here, AI really does fold into some of the operational software we're using. And so our panel is going to speak to more of the field operations software. So less about autonomous systems and more about using software to enable field staff. So whether those field staff exist in service companies, in production companies, midstream, there's a lot of inefficiencies. And if we really look at digital and software as an enabler, we've got to take this approach that it's a tool, right? Like we talked about AI being a hammer, right? Like software in general, whether it's capturing data or moving data or analyzing it to make those field people more efficient. And so oil and gas already, for the last 2 decades has been moving towards digitalization. So this isn't something new, that there's lots of business motivations, such as, reduction of manual labor to save cost, the flow of information within an organization to help make better decisions about what to do, what not to do to identify problems. And then the ability to bring disparate data together. So whether there's data from the field or whether there's business data, bringing these all together in centralized platforms to provide information to management to make more clear decisions. And then, of course, overall efficiency, like reduction of paper, finding data that may be, squirreled away in different databases or in different piles of paper, right? So COVID has really just brought the digital revolution more to the forefront and sped up adoption. And so today we're going to talk a lot about, some of these solutions that have been put in place and how they've been used during COVID and how, they can be used even beyond the COVID restrictions. And so, we need to be able to access this information remotely. We need to be able to prioritize work. We need transparency around what these remote employees are doing, and then creating collaboration. So I think we can actually take it a step further. So if we look at once everything is in software, in databases, and we've brought this centrally, how do we actually bring some of these solutions together, and how do we get more insight? So it's not just about capturing this data and bringing it into an organization. It's once you've actually have that data, what can you do with it to create, more, right? 1 + 1 doesn't have to just equal 2, right? How do we make it 3 or 4 and create more value by bringing this data in? So I think that's really the big opportunity. So let's jump right into talking to some of our panelists, and we're going to go through them kind of one at a time, and hopefully we'll gather some insight as we go, and then throughout the networking, feel free to ask questions of any of the panelists or the insights you see from the combination of these panelists. So first up is Doug Condor. Doug, if you wouldn't mind taking off your mute. He's with Cyanic Automation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your software, your company, your background, and how you're working with producers in the oil and gas industry here.
Yeah, hi, my name is Doug Condor from Cyanic Automation. I was just actually thinking when one of the speakers was mentioning did AI 20 years ago, and then he corrected to 12. I was just thinking about the past, and I might look young, but I think it was about 20 years since I was doing AI in school, so a little bit of an older background of artificial intelligence. But my background, worked for Matricon back in the day, which is now Honeywell, doing a lot of oil and gas work, moved around all over the world, and did some work for British Petroleum in Scotland and in Houston. We started, my business partner Mike and I started this company back in 2014, and what we're looking for is what we gain knowledge from the large oil and gas companies, and the idea was to kind of bring that more to the small and medium-sized companies here in Alberta that actually needed to digitize. And we are concentrating right now on service companies, specifically survey companies that do a lot of work for the oil and gas companies. Yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, so you talked about service companies are using your software. What kinds of things are you helping service companies with specifically? Like maybe what kind of data are you capturing? Who's consuming that data?
So we're doing a lot of field servicing companies, and it's really basic things. We're talking timesheets, invoicing, payroll, things like finding jobs, previous jobs that companies have. One of the problems that survey companies have is the speed in which they can perform a job. That gets affected by whether they had a job in a location previously. So getting that knowledge of all the jobs that a company has done, and was there a job near there, could actually quite affect how quickly they can do a job or bid out a job. So we're helping them keep track of their customers, previous jobs, timesheets, and I'm sure a lot of you that have worked in large organizations, you've heard of like these information silos that companies have, and surprisingly enough, even we're finding even with these small to medium-sized businesses, there's all these sort of information silos. So you have the accounting side of things that have the timesheets and do the payroll, but that actually things like project managers need to know these things in order to figure out, are they burning too much on a job? Are they underwater on a job? For bidding, if you bid out a job and then you do it 6 months later, was my bid accurate or not? And they need a lot of that information. They need is things like timesheets, accounting information that are sitting in the kind of the bookkeeping accounting side of things, and the operations people don't actually see that. So we're kind of breaking those business silos down and allowing PMs and salespeople to glean that information and make intelligent decisions.
So it sounds like, what I'm hearing is you're bringing this level of organization to these service companies. I've worked with lots of service companies in the segment of the industry that I'm working in right now, and there's still paper tickets, and there's still disorganization, and potentially customers are getting billed the wrong thing, or maybe you can quote a job a little bit tighter if you know what your real costs are. And so I can see there's benefit here. what has been your biggest hurdle in terms of adoption? Like when you go and talk to service companies, you know, why aren't more service companies adopting this?
So there's a couple factors. The main factor is these information silos and breaking them down. It also means that the software is touching a lot of different people in the organization. So it's touching the project managers, it's touching the field staff, it's touching the accounting side, it's touching the owners of these organizations. So everyone has sort of an opinion on the software and decisions, and any one of them can kind of very quickly put a monkey wrench in whether, you know, to go ahead with something. Because, you know, if you have an accounting package, it's really simple. The bookkeeper, accountant make the decision, it's done. You have you know, a sales decision, you know, the salespeople do that. But if you have a piece of software like basically an ERP, and that's kind of a dirty word for a lot of people, that touches you know, a lot of people across an organization, you need buy-in from all of them, and that can be very difficult. And it's just so easy to for any party to kind of stop any sort of movement in our organization. So that's kind of been the difficulty.
And do you have a case study or something that you reference in terms of organizations you've helped and how, you know, ROI is obviously a big thing here, right? Is like, do you have an example of how you've saved somebody a bunch of costs or how you've created more opportunity for them?
Yeah, so early on, we worked with a mid-sized survey company, and these people had about 100 staff. So they're mid to large, and they were growing by acquisition, and they were growing by simply natural growth, I guess. And they were having a lot of growing pains because obviously acquiring new businesses and getting all this new staff was causing, you know, a lot of problems for them. And you know, they were actually using a digital system for managing things, but it was one of those systems, I suppose, that maybe some of you are familiar with, that were they were written in the 90s or early 2000s, and they haven't really advanced since then. So any of their field staff, they couldn't access any of the information in the field. They'd have to go into the office to actually access their database. Everything was stored kind of locally. Nothing was in the cloud, so no one could access anything. Maybe they could VPN and maybe not. So a lot of the information was still pen and paper, even though they had a digital system. And we migrated them off of that. And you know, because of that, they saw a lot of increase in productivity, and just the owner actually is more comfortable with where they're sitting, and you know, where they're sitting on jobs, and you know, what's happening in the organization. As companies get larger and larger, the owners start, you know, when you're small, you can really kind of feel and you know what every job is happening. And as you get larger and larger, you start losing that kind of control, and you have these middle managers and people are telling you things and you're not really sure. And now with our software, he has a very good handle on where they're sitting and how they're performing and things like that.
Okay, well, thanks so much, and yeah, appreciate all of your comments, and maybe we'll come back, you know, think about some questions you might have for Doug in the networking session. But I think it's time to move on to our next panelist. So Amit Bhargava is with EnviroApps, and you've got a software package. You're doing very similar, you know, capture of that field data and moving it around the organization, but in a slightly different application. So why don't you give us an overview of your solution and yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. My name is Amit Bhargav, and I'm a co-founder of EnviroApps, a company that I founded with my high school classmate in 2016. It was actually my passion to solve a painful, persistent problem that led us to creating this company, and it was about tracking hazardous waste manifests. They are largely done through paper still, and I think it's a waste of time, and you lose a lot of information in that process, and you have a lot of duplication as well. So at EnviroApps, we help companies remain compliant with regulatory requirements, at the same time taking the pain away from our industry folks by using technology instead of the usual manual and Excel-based processes. And we do that by we help by reducing costs eventually when you do that. So we have a sleek digital solution called Easy to Track, and it can track three things which are closely tied together. It's hazardous waste, dangerous goods, and water use. I would say that would be a good enough introduction.
Yeah, thank you so much. And this type of solution, I mean, who are the consumers of that data? Like when do you implement this solution? Who are the ones that are the stakeholders that are involved in use of this data? You know, kind of within the company and outside of the company that's purchasing your software.
Great question, Mark. So internally, the field users, actually the operations folks, enter data into the system. And the beauty of a cloud-based system, which is mobile enabled or mobile friendly, is that everybody's playing from the same song sheet. So everybody sees the same data. There's only one source of truth. And then the regulatory compliance professionals, when they have to submit their annual reports or get audited, so they use that data. And in certain cases, like say, for example, transportation of dangerous goods, when companies or exploration companies, they move their commodities and they need to track that. So they can actually get paid faster if they use an electronic system, because then the validation is there, the goods have been delivered much faster than the paper cycle. So, and externally, great question, because now there is a lot of mounting pressure from the investment community and everybody else that they require a lot of you know, the regulatory reporting, as well as all the sustainability reporting, which is very hard to do or very time consuming to do if you're dealing with paper. But if you're on an electronic system, that data can be pulled very quickly into the format that they desire.
All right, so yeah, I'm hearing a lot of the same themes between, you know, both of our panelists, right? It's, you know, visibility of data, accessibility of data, you know, allowing management or other people in the organization to be able to make decisions on data that maybe they wouldn't have access to or they wouldn't get quick enough. And so once again, it's, you know, the capture and movement of this data and making it available, right? So once again, you know, similar question is, you know, what kind of obstacles do you see in adoption? Like, do you find that your customers just jump head in, or do you see that certain stakeholders in the organization have some resistance? You know, where's the friction in adoption for you?
Right. As you know, and all of us know, there's always resistance to change whenever you try to do things differently compared to what everyone has done for the last 30 years. And the biggest obstacle we encounter is competing with paper. One of the biggest misconception is that filling out paper manifest is free. That's actually quite the contrary, because you're spending people's time, which could be spent to do something better than just filling out paper forms. And you lose all the real-time visibility that an electronic system can provide if you use paper, and you're spending a lot of time going back and forth. It's even hard to read. And as you can imagine, there's like 4 carbon copies, which can fade over time. So that's kind of the state of affairs right now. And what we have done is we've designed an easy to use system, and that helps users just to log in and get started and make their lives easier right away. Like, it's like when you buy a new cell phone, nobody looks at a manual or a training. So we have tried to make it as easy as possible, and I think that's one way of you know, making it more adoptable. And yeah, so, and also we offer our potential clients to try it before you buy it, pilot option before they commit to it.
And I really see some opportunities here, you know, across, you know, all the solutions we're talking about. But, you know, it's foundational building blocks, right? It's, first of all, you're getting the data in, you're transmitting the data, you're making it available to multiple stakeholders. You know, where do you see things going, maybe with your solution or solutions like yours in general? What extra value can now be added now that you have that data in there, you've got this visibility? Where do you see things going? Can you extend the life of that data in the system to do other things? Can you build more visibility on top of it? What kinds of things are you thinking of there where you can take your business?
Yeah, so collection of data through a regulatory requirement, and then you can actually get a lot of business insights. So in a case study that we did recently for one of our clients, we analyzed 5 years of data, and we found that almost 20% of transportation costs could have been saved if had they used an electronic system to figure out where the nearest location that could handle that waste. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's lots we can do with that data. You can also use that for negotiations, or you can, and ultimately, the data can be used to inform decisions such that you can reduce waste, or you can, and waste is a big cost for the companies, as far as I understand, and reducing a percentage or a few 20% in this case, I think is what everybody needs right now to have a more resilient industry. And with COVID, well, paper is just a problem. Like, you cannot get anything done through movement of paper besides it being a transmission source.
Yeah, and I think anybody here can agree. I mean, what the industry needs right now is cost savings, and looking at digitization is not just another expense. It's removing a bunch of expense and putting in a more efficient solution, and being open to where it's going to take you on that digital journey, right? Because it's not just implement a solution and stop. Getting these insights, I think, is incredibly valuable. So I think we'll move on now to Brandon. Thank you so much, Amit. Appreciate your insights, especially around your solution. So Brandon Ambrose with EZOps. So Brandon, why don't you tell us a little bit about EZOps and the kind of solutions that you guys are implementing?
Yeah, you bet, Mark. Yeah, I really like your comment there about 1 + 1 equals not necessarily 2 anymore, and that's something that we really look for when we look at collaborating with other innovative platforms to just ensure that we're and there's a lot of opportunity there. So yeah, as you guys know, my name is Brandon Ambrose, and I'm the founder and CEO of EZOps. My background is in field production operations. So since 2007, my team and I have saved tens of millions of dollars for producers. We've done this by taking a fresh look at field operations and challenging the status quo. Throughout the years, we found that maximizing performance of each field worker has the maximum benefit for corporate bottom line profits. And we found that pinpointing and providing positive feedback loops to all field operations staff is very time consuming, and it's ineffective if it's not done correctly. So we scoured the market for technology that would help us scale our vision, but there was nothing to be found. There was some very smart behavioral scientists that were studying performance management on frontline operations staff, but there was no technology in place to be able to help them scale their insights. So starting in 2015, we built a solution internally in our company, and it was a proprietary solution initially, which helped us scale this performance for the frontline workers. And then we started getting feedback from the workers from producers that they wanted to license our software, which we were happy to do because we could have more of an impact on the oil and gas space. So in 2019, we incorporated EZOps. We've seen some really exciting growth ever since. So I apologize for kind of that long-winded story, but I think it's important to give some context on the costly problem that we experienced firsthand as consultants out in the field managing these assets. And this is kind of the problem that we're looking to solve. So I guess I'll give some insight on what exactly EZOps is. It's a web-based platform that works on any phone or tablet or desktop, and essentially it creates a digital twin of the operator's workflow or daily workflow. It's a central hub that pulls data in, so it allows operators to make better decisions faster, and it's a median to be able to pull data from the front lines out into Calgary so that they can make better decisions. So if you want to visualize this, an operator gets up in the morning and EZOps tells the operator exactly where he needs to go based on down production, commodity prices, weather, inspections, pigging events, chemicals that need to be, the rates need to be checked or changed, or any input that corporate has decided field operations needs to do. What we do is we have this platform that prioritizes that for the frontline worker. And then once the operator starts his day, he's basically going about his entire day on EZOps, doing all of the work that he would do on the day-to-day, one click, all offline. And then the coolest part is, since we have all of these actions digitized and it's in a usable format, we're able to provide positive feedback loops to start gamifying work and start to drive maximum performance from the front lines. So kind of in a nutshell, that's what EZOps is, kind of why we built it and where we're going. But yeah, happy to answer any questions, Mark, that you have.
Yeah, so just to give back a little bit of perspective on business they would.
I apologize, Mark. I lost you there for a little bit. I don't know if it was just me or not.
Oh, sorry. I couldn't. Hour.
Sorry, Mark. We lost you there for a minute.
Sorry. We're looking for some use cases of actual data that you're capturing with EZOps.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so we kind of see ourselves as that centralized hub of interfacing with the frontline operator. So that's our competitive advantage, because our background is all in the operations space. So we interface extremely well with the frontline worker. So we want to pull in any data that frontline worker needs to make better decisions, and that would drive a priority for changing how he would go about his day. And then we're collecting everything. So we have about 10 modules in EZOps. So we're collecting everything that an operator would do and digitizing that, so it's kind of one click. And then you can then extrapolate and pull that data out for different risk metrics, whether it's pipeline compliance or chemical injection rates for costing and things like that, or preventative maintenance. So we really do everything underneath of the production space. We knew what was really important was creating this all-in-one solution. We kind of found that there's too many niche products out there that are, one segment of the operator, and then they won't get adoption if an operator has to jump to 3 or 4 different products. And being on the front lines with those staff, that was the reason why these other niche products kind of got thrown in the bush, because an operator would have to log in once a month or once a week and forget his password and stuff like that. So what was critical to us was making sure that operations staff use EZOps every single day and they get value from it, and that we're providing that positive feedback loop. So that meant that we had to build out 10 modules that were all really well done and extremely customizable to be able to match the different producers' workflows that they have, which was a tall order, but it was necessary to be able to start digitizing all of that and get adoption. And then once it's digitized, we can do, we've been talking about it kind of for an hour, what the endless possibilities of using that data once it's in a better format. So we kind of pride ourselves of having data that has never been digitized before, because we've kind of created this digital twin of the operator's life. And now there's so many cool layers that we can add on, and so many new inputs that we can put in to be providing more feedback on how operations should be going better. So I on a few other talks, I've kind of elaborated on how much control frontline operations staff actually has when it comes down to it. When you look at the amount of value of commodity that's coming out of the ground and how much OPEX these guys are deciding to spend. So we're really just focused on getting them the right data so that every team member can be having maximum performance and really focused on driving bottom line corporate profits throughout the entire entity. So,
all right, well,
Mark.
That's your short answer, right?
I was giving you some time to fix your internet.
Yeah, we're almost out of time, but I want to kind of ask you, is like, for prospective customers, producers that are planning to look at your software, what do they have to do to get ready? Like, is there anything that they need to do in their organization to be prepared to take that digitization jump?
Yeah, so they have the data, and what's kind of interesting or cool is Calgary. Well, you guys will have the data on what we're digitizing and what we're kind of creating the digital twin from. But it's a kind of a 3-step process. We take the data in from Calgary or what you guys have in your archive records, put that into EZOps. Then we have a seamless way where we put it out into the field where they verify it out into the field. So we actually get, because what's in EZOps has to equal what's in the field. Otherwise, again, field operators won't use it. So our setup staff are all operators, so we know we're basically translators of that data. We can take it in all of the crazy formats that producers have it in. We understand it, and then we plug it into EZOps, and then the producers field staff kind of just verify it, and we can tweak and tune it until it's 100%, and then they're off to the races. And yeah, that's kind of a value add that we didn't realize we were going to be providing, but there's huge discrepancies between what they think is in the field and what's actually in the field. So it's kind of an added benefit.
All right, well, thanks so much for your insights. I think we're out of time as a panel here, so we'll pass it back over to Mark Godin to take over from here.
Perfect, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and Brandon, and Amit, and Doug. So awesome conversation. There's a lot of needs there, and I you know, we're in 2020, and I when I heard we're still competing with paper, I mean, that says something. But that's probably the truth. So there's a lot of resistance to change and a lot of established procedures. And so we'd like to open it up to networking and questions. We offered to people who want to put questions into the chat, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask questions, not just audience, but also the panelists as well. If you want to offer comments or questions to the other panelists, that's also cool. And I'll turn it over now to Lauren and Shay to lead that part of the event.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you everyone who has both attended and participated today. And thank you for staying for the networking and Q&A portion. Before we get started, I invite those who are camera ready to turn your videos on, and definitely go ahead and unmute so we can chat and kind of feel a little bit more face-to-face or voice-to-voice for those of y'all who are on the call. As an icebreaker, since most of us have been sitting here listening for the last hour, I'm going to ask a series of questions. Think of this as your worst teenage fear of never have I ever. This is the professional engineer edition. So I'm going to ask a question, never have I ever something. And if you have done this, then raise your hand, or if you're on the phone and you don't have video, you can just say out your name. And we will call on you to introduce yourself, your company, and then briefly tell the story behind the question. And then afterwards, we can get into the questions, because I did see a few of those in the chat. So let's get started. So first and foremost, never have I ever set something on fire accidentally. Uh-oh. Shay. All right, so can you tell us who you are and the story?
Yeah, hi, I'm Shay. I work with PTAC as a project engineer. And yeah, I've actually set something on fire back 3 years ago when I was still in university. It was 2 a.m. and I was studying for an exam, and I had to heat up a sandwich in aluminum foil, and I just ended up putting it into the microwave, forgetting that it was in that foil. And yeah, there was like a mini fire, and thank God there was no fire alarm, or the entire building would have to evacuate. But I had to be very quick, set it off, and then go back to studying. So
I feel like that's got to be pretty embarrassing as an engineer to say that.
I was
aluminum foil in a microwave.
I was made fun of by all of my nursing friends that was studying with me at that point. They're like, "You're the one person that should know this." Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so here we go. Here's one that people might not want to admit to, but never have I ever failed an engineering course. Uh-oh. No one's going to admit to that? Come on, guys. I was a music major, and I know I failed some music courses.
He said it's okay as it is for brightness.
Okay.
And don't let anyone say otherwise.
You know all the guys in the underground.
Oh,
All right.
he shut down Notify? Like Brian
No.
included?
Well, no,
Oh.
Brian Peters.
Dale doesn't know that he's online. We're gonna mute him real quickly. All right, so next up is never have I ever, professional version, gotten lion poo on my shoes at work. I know who this is. All right, Lauren Arthur.
Yeah, so my name is Lauren Arthur. I'm the new communications specialist at PTAC. I used to work at the zoo, and within my first 4 days, there was an event, and we had the Calgary Stampeders come and do like a back tour of the lion enclosure. So we put meat out and stuff. Anyways, I'm not paying attention because I'm in the lion enclosure, and I stepped in the biggest pile of lion poo that I've ever seen. So that was a great welcome to the Calgary Zoo.
That's okay. I've stepped in some poop, literally and figuratively, before at work. Okay. Never have I ever made a math joke. Come on, engineers. You know you've given a math joke or a dad joke.
I have many.
Now you know you're gonna have to tell us one, Nanette.
I know. What did the 0 say to the 8?
Anybody know this?
No.
No.
Nice belt.
I like that one. That kind of hits both math and dad.
Exactly, math and bad and kid friendly.
There you go. All of them. All right. Here's another one for you engineers. Never have I ever been electrocuted. Anyone have a story? Ooh, MR Deep.
Yeah, that goes back to my college days. We were setting up the concert and on the stage, and there was a junction box. Didn't realize that instead of it being single phase, it was actually 3-phase. Got a real bad shock.
Oh, yeah. I would imagine that's not so good. I was one of the kids that stuck a screwdriver into the light socket to see what would happen. I will never. All right, here's one for all of us nerds, because I know I've done this myself. Never have I ever corrected someone on the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek. Nobody else? Just me? I'm actually quite ashamed.
Sheldon Cooper. Sheldon Cooper does all the time, right?
I know, right? He's my inspiration.
Exactly. Bazinga.
All right, how about never have I ever sent a work email and then immediately regretted it. Uh-oh. The dreaded accidental send. Nobody wants to admit to that one either? Man, either y'all are really, really spot on as professionals, or some of y'all are not being honest. Oh, I see Doug. He's a little iffy. All right. Never have I ever cosplayed or.
I have an email one, but I didn't do it by accident. It was a work thing. I think I didn't accidentally. I wrote we were working on a project for British Petroleum. I shouldn't actually, maybe for a company, and they needed an alerting system. And one of the big VPs, they wanted things like text messaging or email for notification for something, and I made a bit of a mistake in some logic, and I think I might have sent between 100 to 1 million emails to his mailbox. So that's oops. Well, it wasn't me. It was the system that I wrote. That's the closest thing to an email disaster.
That's okay. As a marketeer, I think I've actually sent about 100 to 1 million emails to people. So
yeah,
I
one
feel your
mailbox. One mailbox.
Mine has been too many typos in a newsletter, so I feel that.
Yeah.
All right, never have I ever cosplayed or live action role. Anybody here? No one's been, oh, we got another Lauren Arthur one. Nobody else has done anything with, like, I don't want to know about your furries, but.
Yeah, I just cosplayed as Venom one time. I just went to the Comic-Con. Not too interesting.
Oh, I always wanted to go to Comic-Con. No one else has been to Comic-Con? Nobody else?
I've been, but I didn't get dressed.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, I still want to go. I don't know. I think I'd play with anyone. All right, here's one for a special someone today. Never have I ever had a root canal before being on a video conference.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. This is Nijana. I work for PTAC with Mark and Lauren and Lauren Arthur. Nice to meet you. So as you can see, my freezing is coming undone slowly, but I had a root canal done this morning. This is my third one in 2 years for unknown. But yeah, it's great going on camera right after.
That's okay. It's still a lovely face. All right, here's one that's a little bit taboo, maybe. Never have I ever gotten a tattoo by on a whim or as a dare or for fandom. Nobody has any tattoos, at least. Oh, okay. I actually have a dare one too. We're gonna go on with that one. I'm actually a little afraid of the tattoo ones. And then last but not least, never have I ever had to prep for a hurricane, which actually I have and I am. So as soon as this is over, I have to actually get some bottles of water and some canned food, because if you did not know, I recently moved to Houston and we have 2 coming into the Gulf this week. So that'll be exciting. All right, well, thank you guys very much for indulging us and playing our little game. Hopefully that gets y'all a little warmed up, and hopefully maybe some of y'all get a little bit more wild and spunky in your lives. I mean, it's a pandemic. We should be having fun. Yeah, so we can go ahead and move on to the Q&A portion. Shay, if you want to do that, I know Steve Baird had a question earlier for Brandon. Do you want to go ahead and do the Q&A portion and maybe ask Brandon if you want, or ask Steve if he wants to ask his question?
Yeah, sure. I don't see Steve on the line anymore. Yeah.
Well, I'll ask it for him. So Brandon, this one's for you. Can you elaborate on the gamification aspect of the product?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what we do is, we pinpoint and we'll identify what is the key performance metrics for the different class of user in EZOps, and then then it's a game. You're trying to maximize your performance, and we do that kind of with visual cues and visual feedback loops. Yeah, so we do it with just positive feedback loops and visualizations.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions? Anybody on the line have any questions?
I have a question for Brandon.
Shoot.
Do you find, so I went out and I spent some time with our field operators, and we're a water disposal company. So all of our operators work at like water disposal plants. And what I found was we're taking in a lot of information on a daily basis with our daily walkarounds and having them check pumps and whatnot. And all of that's getting recorded on a piece of paper that literally nobody looks at. And so it's not going anywhere. So I had discussed with them if they think it would be beneficial to have something like, I think what you have, I haven't looked too much into EZOps, but where it's more tabulated and more digitized, and we actually have access to the information. But the pushback seems to be operators tend to be a little bit stubborn and stuck in their ways. So do you see that often?
Yeah.
And is there an easy way to get past that?
Our sales approach is always to the field first. And maybe that's just because we communicate the best with the field. So typically we'll bring the platform out and, whether it's to your water disposal facilities or, a foreman or something, they'll say, oh my God, this is what I've been dreaming of. This is going to replace these 10 or 15 Excel sheets that we're filling up. And I think from like a tactical perspective, if you just get the field guys engaged early and kind of get them thinking like it's their solution and their answer. That being said, it can't be a crap product too. But I think if you just really introduce it to the front end user first and let them drive it, because you're absolutely right. Operators are stubborn. If there's anything that's not right, they'll throw it out the window. So I'd say that that's our competitive advantage and our biggest driving factor why we're seeing success is because we always go in and it's a product for the user. It's not a top-down solution. So I think, and another thing you should look for too is that the user is getting value on their first use and their that gamification or that positive feedback loop and really easy to use, and they need to see value in it. Otherwise, it's way easier just to stay with the status quo on the pen and paper, which has zero value. But as soon as you start digitizing, as you've seen in this, it's amazing when you can actually start using that data, because right now it's a complete waste. And you're just hoping that that operator writing that number down is able to identify that there's a problem when he's putting that number in there. And that's all you're really basing on. As soon as you start digitizing that, you can start sending in emails, alarms, trending. Yeah. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I really just focus on the user. First, find a product that is tailored to the user and then get them engaged early and get them promoting it and getting them to see the value. And then I think that's the most likelihood for success, I would say. But I'm happy to take that offline and discuss more in detail. Even if it's not EZOps, I can show you kind of the tricks that we're doing and to get why we are seeing such good adoption.
Sure, that sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, are there any other questions for our panelists or moderators or Mark or about lion poop? All right, then I do want to take a moment. Oh, yes, ma'am. Shay, we lost your audio, babe. Well, while we're figuring out Shay's audio, I want to take a moment because I realized that when you didn't do the Never Have I Ever participation, we missed a couple of people, such as Miranda, who thank you for your question.
Yeah, my question's for I was
you're cutting out. Do you want to pop it in the chat and we'll get it answered? All right,
So
well,
while we're waiting, I just wanted to add some comments to Brandon's response to Miranda. Yeah, we have seen, if the software that you pick or the platform that you pick is user friendly, and they will never go back. So even though they may love the paper right now, if they can see the value and how it's going to make their life easier, they would just be your best promoter. And so I think that's how you would say to put forth is we've had some funny discussions around that. One of our client, they had a very technically challenged person in their team in the field operations, and when they were considering our product, they sent it over to them and for trial, and when they came back loving it, so then it was an easy decision for them. So make them the champions. I think that's the message. Make the field people champions.
No, that's a great tip in life. All right, so I got Shay's question, and she's like, so Amardeep, this is for you. Do you you have a trial for your software, and how long and how do you access it?
So Shay, we are almost like, at the beta stage. So what we are doing is we are working with a number of our customers, but we are, in many cases, we are co-developing in the sense that since this is more from a SaaS point of view for fast deployment. So what we are doing is kind of fast experimentation. So quick dirty experiments, what works, what doesn't work, almost A/B kind of testing. And that, interestingly, in our case, is going across both the the engineering drawing or the that product, as well as the data or the historian data product. So that is the way we are operating at this moment. Being able to trial is it's not like an open trial. I hope I've answered the question, but that's the approach we are taking. As I said, it's not a single client, but a multi-client kind of viewpoint that enables us to figure out what's scalable, what's not scalable.
No, fair enough. I've actually got a follow-up from Shay from that, but I want to invite all of the software providers today, all the digital solutions. If you have a software trial, if you have any kind of things like that, please let us know, and we can parse that out to those that attended today and also to the rest of our networks. So definitely do let us know. So MRD, just to follow up on that question, what are the results from, or sorry, when are the results from your beta coming out?
So as I said, these are kind of quick, dirty trials. So we are almost with our customers. We are almost on a 2-week sprint. So every 2 week we are moving really, as we test, we move fast, and it's a iterative kind of process. That's the best way I can say. In this case, I kind of use the word, sprint or agile, but it's interesting how you actually, merge that. I had mentioned that earlier. We are kind of bridging between that fast, dirty innovation ecosystem of Bangalore and the engineering ecosystem. So I have to put on these two hats. And how do you actually translate between those two? But it really is helping us move really fast when we do something like that.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. So because this is networking, I still want to give the people who have not had an opportunity to introduce themselves and talk about their companies. I want to open the floor to that. So let's start. Miranda, you've got your camera on, and I know you were camera ready because you already asked your question. So let's start with you.
Hello, I'm Miranda Baywall. I work at Catapult Water Midstream. We are, like I said, a water disposal company, so we compete against Secure, Trevita, all those guys. We have 3 facilities, one in Fox Creek, one in Tower Lake between Dawson and Port St. John, and then one on the ANC at around kilometer 157. And I currently take care of our wells and am moving more into operations, hence my questions towards optimizing those types of things.
Oh, awesome. Well, welcome. Dale, you seem to not be very shy. You've got your video on.
Unmuted. Okay. I'm Dale Scott. I'm working, I guess, right now full-time with a company called Telematics Controls. We have a flow meter, flow switch in the industrial hazardous safety certified space. And I'm also working with free and open source ERP software and looking at opportunities in the IIoT space and cutting out the middleman, going from sensor data directly into an ERP system so that you can trigger service calls for based on filter operating life or pressure or And then rather than going through some other dashboard, just initiates transactions or calls directly in the ERP. So I think that could be a big time saver and efficiency for people too.
No, great. Thank you for joining us today. Let's move on to Max. You still with us?
Oh, hi, good morning. My name is Max, and we see that it was interesting to hear all the presentations, and yes, I see that we developed several projects, and one of the latest development is the application, web application to connect professional people to work sites. So developing that, looking for implementation opportunities and networking. Thank you.
Well, awesome. Thank you for attending, Max. All right, can we move on to Khaled? Khaled, you still with us? Maybe not. All right, what about Rocky? I know Rocky had his video on earlier today. Rocky? Nope. All right. I don't know who caller 3 is. Is that somebody special? Caller 3? Anybody calling in on the phone?
Hello.
Oh, hello, caller 3. I feel like I'm on the radio, Joe.
Okay, all right. It's Eileen Ashmore.
Hi, Eileen.
Hi. Great session this morning.
Oh, well, thank you. You want to tell a little bit about you and Strategic Timelines?
Yes. Strategic Timelines is a consulting firm, management consulting firm, working with technology-driven businesses to assist them learn about innovation funding and secure innovation funding. And I'm a member of PTAC and a good number of organizations in the city, and have been working in this area now for 10 years directly, assisting technology-driven businesses.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us again, Eileen. It's always great to have you on the line. For those of y'all who are wanting to, you can also use the chat function to drop your LinkedIn with other people, and it'll help build your network. You guys can talk offline. So yeah, you can use the chat function to everyone and just drop in either your email address or your LinkedIn, whatever you feel comfortable doing. And then once the session is over, people can still access you and take the conversations away from just this one event.
Great idea.
I think that about ends the session, and almost on time too. I don't know, Mark, if you have some last words of.
Thank you very much, Lauren. That was a great job facilitating, and thank you for the icebreaker, and thank you for everyone who participated now in the networking. Also want to thank the presenters and our key facilitators from CRIN. And in closing, as Lauren and Shay mentioned, the contact information for the presenter has been put into the chat. So we view this event as a first step. If you want to contact them to have more in-depth conversation, please go ahead. And we have also recorded the session, and it will be made available on the PTAC website. So if you have colleagues who you think should watch it, please forward the link to them. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and watch our space. We will have other focused conversation events in the fall. We're still building out the event series, but I'm very pleased with the turnout today. Thank you, everyone. So we will close the session now. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Mark. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Bye. Have a good day.
Thank you. Good day.